Hello all. So today we'll be talking about how to apply application part of the cumulative update. If you haven't seen the first part, where we have talked about how to apply the platform cumulative update, uh, please check the video into the upgrade playlist. I'll start from where we left. Just a quick recap of what we did. We have downloaded the existing version that customer was using, which was cumulative update 10, and we also downloaded the latest version where the customer would like to be upgraded to in the cumulative update, which was CU26. Later on, we uninstalled all the extensions which were available on the customer database. After uninstalling all those extensions, we uninstalled cumulative update 10 and then installed cumulative update 26. Once that was completed, we opened our customer database into cumulative update 26, which technically converted the database to CU26. At that point, we stopped. So let's start from where we left, and let me show you where we were. So we had a database, which is this PC1 prod. It is technically converted to the platform of cumulative update 26. I don't remember the version, but you can check it from here, which is 47540. Surprisingly, during this duration, I got some queries around why, when we had to update to cumulative updates 26, why we downloaded cumulative update 10, which was the older version of customer, the product DVD of that version, and that was majorly for the application update. So let me quickly go through what does that mean, and then we'll actually start doing it. So before we plan this upgrade of cumulative update, we have a customer database which had customer object. In this case, they were using Business Central 14, cumulative update 10, and they also have some customs on it. Now, to identify these customs, it can be a little bit tricky in situations based on what kind of customs those are. Are they properly documented or not? So there is a method which we use in full-fledged upgrades also, and that also applies for cumulative updates. We compare this database with a baseline of the same version, which is Business Central 14 cumulative update 10. Now remember, as I said in the last video, I'm assuming a scenario where the customer have no ISV solutions. If a customer is using an ISV solution, then that will also be part of this area, and you'll also have to merge it into the old base or the base Microsoft object, because our responsibility as partners is to identify these customs and take it forward to the new version. So when we compare these two objects, what we get out of it is the delta, and this is the delta that we have to bring to the future version of Business Central, which in this case, cumulative update 26. Now, how you do that? Let's understand that quickly before we move into it. So if you remember, we had some databases before we started this, and what we did is we renamed our cumulative update 10 Cronus database as CU10, and this is our CU26 database. Now, just to save time, what I've done is I have already taken object backups before doing the conversion, which we did in the last video. Let me identify those files. So this file and this file, and let me name them as one so that you understand them correctly. this is my 1, and this is also my 1 file. Okay, this is my second file, and this is also my second file, and I'll explain you why there are 2 files of each type. And this is my third file, which is from Cumulative Update 26, and this is also my third file. Now what I've done is I have exported 2 kinds of objects. These are all objects from Cumulative Update 10 Cronus database, and because I knew where my customs are, I also exported only the selected objects where there were some customs from the CU10 database, from the base Microsoft database. In the similar fashion, these 2 files are from the customer database, which is all objects from the customer database, and these are again selected objects from the customer database. And in the similar fashion, the third file is coming from the target database where we have to go, which is Cumulative Update 26. Now there are different tools available which can help you in comparing these files. For sure, there is one which I prefer most of the time, is called WinMerge. So you can go to the website, download the tool. It's just a file comparison tool. So you can just select 2 files. So let's say BC140 Cronus and BC140 prod, which is Microsoft selected objects which I know that I have modified, and these are actual modified objects from customer database. And when I compare them with WinMerge, it gives me, in the wrong way, but you can change the view by switching the sides if you want. Switch panes. Okay, so now here is my customer database objects, and here are my Microsoft objects. Make sure that the versions are same. That verifies the first part is same. That verifies they are coming from the same product DVD which is expected. If I scan through this file using finding next change, I'll see where I have modified this object and all the objects which are in this file. So in this table I have added a field called demo code, maybe something else, but nothing. On table 23 I have also added a field called demo code, and in the similar fashions I have every objects which have some customs. Like on table 27 I have surely some customs, and you can scan this, compare this, and it's up to you. You will identify all the objects. So either you can take the all files which are part of the product DVD if you are not sure where you have done customs, or you can take the selected objects because you know that these are the objects which are being modified. Now the next part of it is to identify these customs and merge it into CU26, because I now have to do the application update, which is the code update. Now that can be time consuming in scenarios of a big database where there are more customs around it. Microsoft, starting 2015 I would say, have provided us PowerShell commands which can help you with these comparison steps. So let's run PowerShell, and those commands are part of the development module which get installed when you install Dynamics Snap or Business Central 14 and 13. So what you have to do is you have to import the module, and I prefer PowerShell IC. It's not mandatory to use it. There are other ways that you can do this, sure, but you'll go into x86, go to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. If it is NAV, you'll go to Microsoft Dynamics NAV, and then your version that you are in, and this only works in CAL, so this is not something that you don't even need it in AL, more or less. So inside Role Tailor Client there is a PS1 file called nav model tools.ts1. So you select this and you import this module. As soon as you run this, you will see some commands getting loaded in here, which is, there are different commands available, but we will specifically focus on compare nav application object, which is somewhere here, nav application object. Now, why I prefer the PowerShell module is this also gives you an option here called show command add-on, which gives you easy GUI parameters where you can set it easily rather than typing it in command line. So I'll just do a compare and I'll find compare nav application object. Remember to refresh it once you have run this command, because then it loads this command into this panel. Now it requires three parameters, which is the original path, the modified path, and delta path. If there are things which I cannot cover in this video, you can always click on this help icon and see what these command means. It will install those commands and will show you eventually after that. So it gives you the whole synopsis of what it does, and you can read about it. There are different parameters, but I'll talk about the minimum parameters that you need. So it needs a path where your original objects are saved, and whenever the command line says original, that means in this case Microsoft objects. And then it requires a path where your modified objects are saved, which are your customer objects. And then the delta path is where it generates the output of comparison. So let's go here and let's select selected object at this point for base. So you can go here and you can click on copy path. This is my selected objects from CU10 and paste it into the original path. I'll go back and I'll pick the PC140 prod, which is my modified objects, copy path and paste it here. And then you can create a folder here to get the delta based on the comparison. So I'll just copy this path and I'll paste it here. What system will do is compare these two files, and whatever the delta of these two files will be will get stored in this folder, one file per change. If you are not sure that there might be only documentation, then you can use ignore documentation, and then other parameters have their own meaning, which is not for this video. But let's run this. So from here you can run it directly. As soon as you run it, you start comparing those objects, and it said that I have compared 9 objects and all 9 of them are changed. Let's see what happened in our delta folder. Each object that was changed, there's a delta file attached to it. Now if you open it with Notepad or any other utility, let me close this, or let me open just with Notepad. You'll see what kind of, like, if you have been working in NAV for a while, you'd have seen the old hotfix file. It kind of does this. It gives you the original code, then also the modified code, and then it also checks what the property modification is. So it compares the whole file and shows you what the delta is. And that applies to all the files. Now just to make sure that we don't have any other changes, I'll do delta all. This time I'll compare all objects which I got from the DVD. So what I'm going to do now in this case is I'm going to select all objects from Cronus, copy path, that becomes my original, and then also all objects from my prod, copy path, and we'll run this. When you run this, there are so many objects, it'll take some time to read these files, but eventually it will be able to read all the files and generate the comparison output as delta into this new folder called delta all. So eventually we'll see something in that folder called delta all as it completes the reading of all the files. Now this command you cannot use for compare any other text file. It is specifically built to compare nav application object. So there should be NAV objects in that. Now it's comparing 6389 objects, and it also found that there are 9 change objects and 6380 objects are same, identical in both the files. So now you are sure that you only had 9 object change, and delta all should also contain the same files which we had in the delta. Remember that always these parameters inserted, deleted should be 0, because if they are not 0, that means the files that you have used for comparison are incorrect. Inserted can have value because you might have new objects in your database, but there should never be a deleted element, which means that there is an object in the base Microsoft file, which is the original file, but it does not exist in the modified file. So deleted should never be 0 in a normal scenario, unless you are doing something completely out of the box. Hope this makes sense. Now we have the output of the comparison. Now the next step is to able to merge it into the newer application code. So I'll come back to my slide if I can here and try to run this. Okay, so we have seen how you can calculate the delta, and now we'll see that what would be the process to apply that delta into the database, into the new object set that you have. And for some reason my presentation mode is not working, so I'll actually go back and okay, I guess I'm there. Now it's time to merge. So we have also seen this in the previous slide, that we have old custom objects, old base objects, and the customer objects. The baseline remains same, which is cumulative update 10, and then there are some customs in 9 objects that we saw as a result of comparison. So we generated this delta. Now in the older versions of nav, you actually have to manually copy these changes and then merge them into the newer version of your application files or the objects file. With nav 2015 and higher, Microsoft adds some new PowerShell commandlet, where if you provided a new object set which is based on the target version where you want to go, which in our case is cumulative update 26, then using one single command you can auto merge these delta changes into the same objects, and it will give you the new merged objects. Now when I say this may or may not work 100% based on the version that you are coming from and also the kind of changes that you have made. So it's in typical scenario it cannot work 100%, but it surely reduces the amount of work that you have to do in a cumulative update. So now let's understand how you do that. So as I said, I have already exported these out from CU26. So now we will try to merge the changes. So what I'll do is, I'll also create a new folder called my result, and what I'll do, instead of the compare, I'll run the new command, which is merge nav application object. This have more parameters. You can again read the help here if you want. Now instead of having the 3 parameters or 2 parameters in the previous version, in the previous command, which is original and modified path, there are 2 more folders here, or 2 more paths that you need to provide. So let's follow the same step. We'll provide the original path, which is my selected objects. So I can do a copy path, which is this, and then I'll do a modified object, which is this. Let's do a copy path. Now the comparison of these two files will be stored somewhere. That becomes your result where you want to store it. So I want to store the results that generated from it in one single file. I don't want it to be splitted. If you want it to be splitted, you can just give the folder name. If you want it in one single file, I'll just name it, or maybe I don't even need to store the result folder separately. I can just place it here and I'll say this, and I'll name it something else, and let me just copy the path. I'll change the name here and I'll say this becomes my 4 BC140 prod, but with CU26. This is the result file that I want out of the comparison. But the comparison, as I showed you in the slide, need to be applied on a new base or new Microsoft. That becomes your target path. So I take selected objects from here, from CU26, copy this and paste it here. Now I'm saying to compare these two files, which is modified and original, whatever the delta comes out, try to merge it into this file set, but don't modify this file. Create a new file with this. So system will compare these two files. Whatever the delta will come, will apply that delta into this, and the result will be stored in this file. So let's do that. Let's run this. Comparing, it's writing, and in this particular case where I was running it, it actually merged it in 100%. As I said, this was a demo scenario. In actual scenario, it may not work 100%, but it tells you how many objects it merged. Are there any conflicts? Then it shows you how many objects have conflict, how many new objects were inserted. There were no, in my case, no 50,000 objects. How many objects were deleted? Again, check this, because this should always be 0 in most of the cases. And if there are unchanged objects, that list here. And then these are the failed objects. Now people prefer sometime to merge all the objects from the old custom, the new. My style suggests that you should always pick the minimum set, bare minimum set that you need, because you don't want to compare 6,000 objects, because that's illogical. And we have done the comparison to make sure that the 9 object count is the correct object count of the objects which are modified. And we have done that in both the ways, which is, and I'll tell you all these folders, which is by comparing the selected file and also by comparing all the files. So you're pretty sure that you have these 9 objects which are changed. So you should only take these 9 objects from all 3 product DVDs, which is cumulative update 10, cumulative update 26, and the customer environment, and then run the merge on it so that they get merged quickly and easily. Now once this is done, let's have a look here what actually happened. It created a new file, CU26, selected objects of BC140 prod, but it also created these 3 new folders. In scenario where there will be a conflict, the conflict will get stored in these specific folders, which in my case there are no conflicts, so these are empty. But eventually if there will be conflicts, they get stored in these 3 separate folders, and they get created automatically as the execution of this command happens. Now just to make sure that all my changes are in, I'll take the 3rd file, which is from CU26, and the 4th file and compare these two. When I very large file, okay, selected objects, and selected objects. Okay, sorry. Why? Oh, sorry, I was comparing the wrong file. Selected objects and selected objects, and compare these two files. So there seems so many changes, which because the one part, oh, this is 27 and this is, oh, because when the merge happens, it doesn't actually come in the same order as it is supposed to be. So if you see on this side it says table 18, whereas in this side it says code unit 80, because result of the merge always sorted based on the object type, which is starts with code unit and then the sequentially object table will come at the end. So you can't actually compare it right now, but we'll import this fourth file into a database and then we'll do the comparison. So let's go ahead and open a database, and I'm not putting it into the customer environment right now. I'm just trying to put this file, this text file, into the BC140 from CU26. I'll import it here and then we will check these objects. So let's import this and I'll pick the text file, which is the result of my merge, which is 4, and I import it here. And as I don't have permission, I'll just pause the video for a while and change the license. Okay, I've changed the developer license and now I'm going to import it, the fourth file, and it'll get imported. Now whenever a text file gets imported, it is stored as uncompiled object, so we'll be easily able to filter out these 9 objects because they will be uncompiled. And then when we export these out from the database, we'll be able to see which objects were changed and how they were changed. So I have marked these objects in the past, but I'll just remove this mark. I'll unlock these. Okay. Now these are the 9 objects that are in question. I'll just mark them in so that they don't get lost as I compare them. Sorry, as I compile them. And I'll say at this point later and compile this. So as they get compiled, it'll be easier to compare those against my baseline database that I was trying to do. Kind of lost. Let me apply the filter, which is because they don't merge the version tag, which you have to do. So I'm just applying the filter because I know the objects, which are these. And then coming to page is okay, 21, 26 and 30, and then one code unit, which is 80. So this was my set which I just imported as text and compiled them. So I'll export them out for my comparison, and I'll say this 4.1 just for my comparison. So they got exported. Now let's come back here. Now if I compare my 3 file with my 4.1, I'll be able to see what changes were merged in. Which is table 18. Let's come down. So the field that I had in my table 18 in my old version of the application is now also available in the objects from CU26 using the merge command. Let's go down and let's see one more object. Okay, and this might have moved even faster, but let's come down. Okay, there is one more demo code, and because the object version is same, because the object tag was not merged, we are not able to see the objects which are changed, but I'm pretty sure that this was the code that I have written and that came forward. Now once you are sure about the merging, you don't only have to take these 9 objects, because other objects have also changed between CU10 and CU26. So what you're going to do now is you will remove the filter, you'll select all objects and you will export them out. And you can't, as I told you, so you can lock them down as I explained last time. And what I'll do is, I know what code units are not allowed in partner license, so I'll go down and unmark those, which are these. But you should apply the lock method, because there may be some ISV which are not allowed in your license to be exported, so be very sure about it. And I export it as 5, which is BC, or yeah, this is going to import on BC140 prod, CU26, all objects. Now this is all objects from 26 with all the customs which I have merged. So I had 9 object change. Using the compare, I verified that those are the only 9 objects which are modified, and then using the merge, I automatically merge those objects. Now my application merge is over, and now I need to apply this merge on my customer database so that they also have the application from the higher version and not just the platform only. So all the hotfixes which have been found out by issues that have been found by Microsoft, or if there are regulatory changes in between these times, between these versions, they're all part of the cumulative update. So now on my BC140 prod, which we have already converted to CU26, I can go ahead and do a file import and select my this file, which is 5, which I just exported, and click open. Now this file contains all objects of CU26 Cronus Microsoft with 9 objects which I have changed. So those changes are also part of the FOB that we are importing. Now as soon as this is done, you will come to this import window. You'll see so many objects have been changed. It might show that there are some changes because this logic generates based on the version list of that object. So I'll do a replace all, which replaces all the objects. And if you have to append the version, you can surely do that, but just to save time, I'm just doing a replace all. And if you see, most of the objects have been changed with different versions. So like this object, table 84 from 14.0, which is the initial release of Business Central 14. In this version 25, there are some changes, and there are so many objects like this where the old and the new version does not match. So you need to make sure that this gets added into your customer environment. You do a replace all, you click OK, and it'll ask you for the synchronization schema. You'll choose later, and I'll talk about it in a while, and you'll click OK and start importing objects. Now if you don't know much about the synchronization schema, the window that we just saw a while ago, do check the BC open discussion playlist. A few weeks ago we have talked in detail about what these different schema sync operations are and what to use in what situation and how they differ from each other. So there's a detailed explanation video in the BC open discussion channel which is specifically talk about sync methods, and maybe what I'll do after this video, I'll also tag that into the upgrade playlist so that you can review that, because that's super important to understand what are these different schema models. I'll pause for a while this is happening because this may take some time. Okay, so now that's done. It created new 17 objects which are part of the cumulative update 26, and it also modified or replaced 6389 objects. Now our code base is also cumulative update 26, but that's not it. We just have to take some final steps to complete the platform update, to apply the cumulative update steps, and that starts from PowerShell, but this time we need a different commandlet. Instead of the role-tailor client, I'll have to pick the commandlet, and I'll close this window so that you can read the path. Okay, and this time, because we have done some changes into the database, we'll have to select the module from the service tier folder, which is C program files, Microsoft Dynamics Nav or Business Central, based on what you're working on, your version, service, and then there is also a PS1. I'll just run this. When you have to run one line, you can just keep the cursor on the line that you have to run and don't select anything, and use this one. If you have to run everything, then you can click on this green one. So now run this. It will add new commands into this PowerShell window, which are completely different in what we had from the role-tailor client folder, because that's a separate purpose of it. So the first thing that you have to do once you have applied this or imported those objects is first set the application version of your database. Now before we do that, we need to map our database to a service. So let's go in and see where our service panel is, which is Business Central Administration, and you can just start the service because we haven't started it last time. Oh, it's run. No, the prod is stopped. So we'll start the prod service, where the version is already upgraded because in the last video we have already upgraded the platform, and the service panel is part of the platform. Now once this happens, once the service starts to run, our database, which is BC140 prod, will be connected to a service called prod. So let's wait for that. Okay. Now we just have to set the application version. We have to run the sync, and we have also run a small step for data upgrade, which would have nothing at this point in case of cumulative update, but that's a step that Microsoft suggests to do. Now behind the scene in the database, there is a version attached to each database, and that's very important to upgrade because after this you will be surely upgrading your customer to Business Central versions. So that version plays very important role in your next major upgrade. Now if you don't know what your application version is, you can always go to your view command and say show command add-on, and there will be a command, and let me refresh this so the new commands are here, and you can do a get nav application, and this will show you based on the service name, which in our case is prod, is what the application version is set on this database. So when you run this, it tells you that it is still set to 14.11, which is 14 cumulative update 10, and this is the build number. Now how you identify what is the build of that you want to update it to? For that, there is an article, and I'll put references into the video description, which is this, which talks about how you identify the version numbers in Business Central. The version numbers is a collection of these 4 builds, and for Business Central 14, the 14 is the major version, so we know that the major is 14. The minor is referred to the number, which is the cumulative update number that you have, and then the build is the 5-digit number that comes with that release, and the revision is set to 0. That's how it is. So for cumulative update 26, if you see the 14.0 .47450 is already provided, and you just have to append the last 0 to make it a 4-digit number. So we'll take this number, and that seems a little bit wrong because that should be 14.26 at this point. Or sorry, this is the application build. Sorry, I was referring to the platform build. This is the platform build, which is 14.27.47563. So the application build, you'll copy it from here. You'll go back here and you'll run the command. Instead of get, you will run the command set nav application. It'll ask you different parameters. There are different ways how you do it, and you can just assign the application version that you need, which in our case is this for 27, and then last is 0, and the service where you want to do it is DC140. Oh sorry, it's just prod. Okay, and then you need to make sure that you force it. That's how it is done. So the application version will come from your cumulative update page that you are updating to, whatever the application build is, and you will append a .0 at the end. This is based on this article which I'm showing here, and then your service name, and force it. When you run this, it'll execute quickly. And now if you do a get nav application, or I can just do up arrow here. Now if I do a get nav application and do an enter, I'll see the version that my database application is set to 14.27, which is cumulative update 26, and the build number. Now once you have set the application, you just have to run the sync nav tenant command, which you can either run from here or from your object designer. It's up to you how you want to run it, which is this, and then the service name, which is prod, and you'll run this, confirm in sync mode. As I said, you can watch on the video which specifically talks about it, and if there are any destructive changes at this point, the sync will fail. If you have missed some merging on a table, or if you have changed something on a table, specifically on table, it will fail. Now once the sync is done, the last step, more or less the last step, is start nav data upgrade, which just runs Microsoft routine, and then you just need to give the service name, and you can run it here. Start, yes, and it'll take a while and it'll complete in a while, but it'll get over. Okay, so now that's done. If you just want to see what happened here, you can just do a get nav data upgrade, and let me see, and you just give the detailed parameter called prod, click on detailed, copy this time. I'm not running this, I'm copying it because I want to see it in a good way, and then I want to see, I piped an output to a grid view so that I can see it in a window, and I hit enter and shows me what step ran during the upgrade, which are these. For each company there was some preconditions checked, there was some small upgrade happened, it validated the upgrade step, and after upgrade commit logic. Now once you have completed the upgrade, you are more or less done, and it's up to you or what your customer is using. But let's open the application now. So our database is now upgraded, so we should be able to run our application. So let's run item list page so that the application populates, and we'll see how it looks like, which is more or less similar to customer. For our customer, nothing have changed, but the code has been updated to the latest version, and also the platform is updated to the latest version. The only step that is remaining now is to update your apps or extensions if your customer is using them. So if your customer is using the extensions, like for this example, we had some extensions before we started the upgrade. And if I go to extension management, I can see that there are still the old versions of extension. Now in the product DVD of Cumulative Update 26, there is an application folder which have, sorry, not this, it might be called extensions back then. Yeah, there are this extension folder which will have the updated version of all these extensions, and you can just update them, right? Once you have updated these application, you are there and there's nothing more left in your upgrade journey to the next cumulative update, which is more or less over. Hope that makes sense. Now that was all that I wanted to talk about in the cumulative update, and I'm hoping that I covered every question that has been asked to me till now on this upgrading cumulative update topic. Thank you NG who suggested for recording this. Let me know your views into comments. Your comments are super helpful. It gives me direction, what kind of topics you need, how I'm doing on my recording. I might not be able to respond your query immediately if you want me to record on some specific topic, but I'll try my best to keep recording in sync as much as I can. And then, as I talked about during the video, I have this I contribute in this PC open discussion. We meet every week on Saturday India time 9:30 p.m. and we talk about questions and problems that different developers are facing, and we try to resolve them by sitting together. It's a great place. If you can be there, great. Otherwise, those sessions are recorded and are available on YouTube on weekly basis. So do let me know if you can. Do subscribe to the channel. Do share these videos to your colleagues so that they also understand these solutions to these kind of problems. And let me know your feedback as comments to this video. Thank you. Have a great day.